Hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here. You're about to listen to a hypnosis session all about breaking an addiction by shifting an identity. And a lot of people link certain habits to the identity level. So if you think of alcohol and cigarettes, people might think of themselves as a drinker or as a smoker. And drug use tends to be adopted at the identity level. It forms part of who they consider themselves to be. But that can carry consequences, health consequences, financial consequences, even legal consequences, depending on what the substance is and where in the world you might be taking it. So I was working with a client that had some near misses, had certain things that really felt that they didn't want anymore. And that was things about the level of use, how they were using it, and particularly where they were using it. So this session is about two things. Firstly, regression, going back to a time where they had certain things that really were part of their identity, and then they shifted beyond that just because they moved on. And that was related to taking a substance, but also how they came across, how they actually kind of presented themselves. So it starts with evidence that their identity can change and does change. And then it goes forward to two different timelines. A timeline of the consequences if they stay the same, and a different timeline if they adopt a more healthy identity. And this particular client said, well, if they were to replace the substances that they were taking with something else that would be more positive, it would be things like exercise, fitness, eating well, that kind of stuff. So that's why that identity is the replacement, so that they can experience what it would be like if they stay the same, but also what it would be like if they carried on their future with a slightly altered identity, to take from this element of recklessness and, carrying risks with an element of discernment, so that they only do certain things if they feel that the risk reward ratio, which is more investment language, but it can apply to other things, is worth it. Because otherwise, if you're carrying a lot of risk and there isn't much upside, then you increase the probability of an undesirable outcome happening. So if you are a user of a substance and you feel like to carry on could actually be either reckless or have some kind of consequence for you, and you'd like to change that, this session might be really useful. Just be aware that the session itself was created for a specific individual with very specific circumstances. Therefore, this session may have suggestions which aren't quite right for you. So just ignore any suggestions that aren't quite right, hone into the ones that feel empowering for you. And if you like the idea of working with me directly, there will be a link in the description where you can schedule a free consultation call, and then we could explore working together. So I'm your hypnotherapist helping you specifically. For now though, this session, even though it was recorded for someone else, may be useful for you. So find a quiet, comfortable place where you won't be disturbed, relax, and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in. As you breathe in that resourceful feeling of calm and relaxation. And as you exhale, just release any tension in your eyelids. And as you exhale, feel any tension, any frustration, feeling like it's leaving your body there in the outward breath. Breathing in relaxation and exhaling tension. Each breath takes you deeper and deeper relaxed. And I want you to scan your body for any clues of tension, restlessness, or stress. And as you breathe in, I want you to imagine you're breathing in the most concentrated and distilled version of resourcefulness. Not synthetic, not artificial, something real. Imagine it as a color, and you're breathing in that resourceful feeling of relaxation. Imagine that color going in through your nose, into your lungs, and imagine your heart distributing that really resourceful feeling to every cell in your body. And then imagine that any tension, any worries, any stress is melting away and then leaving your body like a dark cloud as you breathe out. Breathing in the resources you need and exhaling any limitations, any dependencies, any reliance. Just allow that to leave your body as you exhale. That's right. Breathing in and breathing out. And the deeper you breathe, the more relaxed you feel. And the more relaxed you feel, the deeper you breathe. Each breath takes you deeper and more relaxed than the last. And as your physical body relaxes, your imagination awakens. And I wonder if you can imagine a place outside by a pool near an olive tree, seeing the blue in the sky and just the occasional white fluffy cloud floating by. And I want you to get a feeling that a white fluffy cloud can be like a thought, even a craving. That if you just allow it and don't need to respond to it, it will just float on by. And then if another cloud comes along, there's nothing you need to do. You can just allow it to continue floating. And in the past, these clouds were like triggers. Certain people, certain places, even certain times of the day, gave you a feeling that you had to do something. And every time you did, you created a link between a thought, a feeling, and an action. But it is possible to think something, to feel something, and not need to do anything at all. So as you imagine, perhaps a lounger, perhaps even something comfortable, maybe an inflatable just floating on a pool. Imagine looking up at the sky, feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin, but feeling completely relaxed, aligned, that everything you need to do is nothing at all. As I count down from 5 to 1, I want you to imagine releasing all the tension in every muscle, and imagine what it would feel like to drift off into a dreamlike sleep, there, looking up at the sky. 5, releasing all the tension around the face, your jaw, even the tiny, tiny muscles at the back of your neck. That's it. And then 4. Focus now on your shoulders, breathing in relaxation, exhaling tension. Just allow all of that to melt away. And then 3, just focus on your arms and your legs. And imagine what they would feel like if they were limp and loose and completely relaxed. Just there by your side. Just like the limbs of a puppet with no strings. And then 2, focus on your internal organs, but particularly the area in your chest. Imagine how that would feel to release any and all tension. But also imagine your heart relaxing, your stomach relaxing, even your lungs relaxing. That's it. And then 1, just imagine a ripple of relaxation from the tips of your toes to the top of your head, and then all the way down to your fingertips. As you imagine what it would feel like to drift into that dreamlike sleep. And you've had dreams of going back to the past. And you've had dreams of exploring a future. And I wonder, in this dreamlike state, if you could imagine floating up out of your body and visiting the past from a new perspective. I want you to go back to a moment where part of who you are at your core changed. Maybe you used to dress or be a certain way. And then one day, you realized that you didn't need to do that to be who you really are. And I want you to observe what you were like before, how much time and effort was invested to be what you thought was aligned with your identity. And then one day, something changed, and you didn't need to be like that to still be aligned with an identity. It just naturally evolved. You grew out of one thing and linked into something else. And I want you to see how that process unfolded. Maybe all it was a realization. Some thought that says, I don't need to be like this. I can be who I want to be. And once you can observe that transition from one identity to another, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. And I want you to really connect with the idea that you are not static. You're not forced to be exactly the same way for your entire life. That it's natural to learn from experience, to make new evaluations, and to change subtly, sometimes profoundly, in positive new ways. And then go to a different point in time. I want you to see the days leading up to a major health scare. I want you to see that there was a time that you associated into positive feelings and disregarded consequences. Maybe think of a time when you were reckless. Intellectually, you may have known about some risks, but emotionally you didn't care. Until one day, something changed. But I want you to observe what happened in the same way that someone else there would have observed it. And I want you to see the reactions of people's faces, the worry, the concern, the care. And I want you to see that at that point happened, something shifted. A new evaluation took place. Something along the lines of, it's not worth the risk. Maybe parameters changed. Frequency of use, quantity of use, something changed. And when it changed, you didn't need willpower, because the association of that thing had changed. What once was wonderful then became a bit gross. And when that shift happened, notice how more discerning you were. Instead of a regular user, you became incredibly discerning, only in specific situations. And maybe there was other things like that. Something you used to do a lot in your 20s. Whereas now, you might pick your battles. And what if this is wisdom, discernment? What if this is maturing? What if this is not being boring, but being distinguished? I want you to think that some things might be appealing only if they're done sparingly. That if something is done every day, it can lose its appeal because it becomes mundane, predictable. That overuse is itself boring. And as you look at the past from this new perspective, you can extract the wisdom that sometimes changing standards, something you used to do regularly that then becomes infrequent, or something that you used to do you're not willing to do at all. I want you to imagine what it would be like to have an ironclad boundary, not a rule. You're not forced to. It's a line you're choosing not to cross because it doesn't fit with who you are. And I want you to imagine standing in front of two different doors. Each door represents a different future, a different identity to experience that future. The door on the left is carrying on as you are, and the door on the right is a slightly evolved, enhanced identity of you. But let's experience carrying on the current path first. When you can imagine standing in front of that first door, let me know by nodding your head. And this first door, we can call it business as usual. But I want you to be the observer. As you walk through the door, take on a third-person perspective. And I want you to see yourself using certain substances at the same frequency that you currently do. Certain parties you see yourself using, certain situations, certain places in the world where availability is more. But I want you to see that certain things that you're doing, you're not doing for fun or excitement or adventure. Some of the things are just being trapped in a loop, doing what's familiar. But I want you to observe all of the things that seem to have a new meaning now. I want you to see yourself frustrated at losing a game and then feeling like you need something. Or see yourself caught almost in a predictable loop. Certain rooms, checking a phone, doing something that just repeats and repeats, like someone's trapped in a moment. And I want you to see that when you do certain things, it amplifies the probability of doing other things that aren't healthy or carry risk. Maybe you see yourself smoking more, drinking more, using more. But from this third-party perspective, like you're looking at yourself like a stranger, I want you to see that version of you that's used up their luck. How much luck can any one person have? How many near misses until the near miss isn't a near miss, it's a full-on collision? How many wake-up calls are needed until you actually wake up that new identity? How many lucky escapes until you don't get to escape? And I want you to imagine following that timeline to a future where you're not so lucky anymore. Maybe it's a random stop, some kind of a test, a check, and maybe where you're living in the world, you're not lucky as to the rules. I want you to imagine in that timeline, not a guarantee, just a possibility, that your livelihood and your liberty is taken from you. I want you to see that you're treated very harshly. And maybe it's months, maybe even a year or more. I want you to see the toll that it takes on that version of you. Because sometimes when people find themselves in a particular place, they don't get to avoid trouble, trouble finds them. I want you to see that sometimes life can be like a house of cards. Just one unfortunate thing then causes another unfortunate thing, and then something else. And I want you to imagine observing the impact on the people you care for and love the most. Maybe people that rely on you, depend on you, need you. Just observe as that person with limited options maybe can't help the people they used to. And maybe that leads to further consequences, undesirable consequences. And this is just your imagination. But what if you consider a worst case scenario? The worst thing that could happen, and yet could be avoided. Allow your imagination to do the hard work for you. These are already your fears, Your worries, your concerns, they've always been there, even if you try to bury them. And sometimes that's what a worry is for. To think of something you don't want in the future, so you get to avoid it. And when you can think of that horrible thing in the future, let me know by nodding your head. But I want you to imagine you yourself now visiting that version of you, telling them that this can all be avoided. Give them some wisdom, some advice, or perhaps a new identity. Maybe it's something as simple as trading in the gratification from a substance, from the real sense of pride, accomplishment, and energy that comes from a new level of health, fitness, and well-being. That in that horrible place, if they could go back in time and change things, wouldn't they? But before we leave this place, step into that future version of you experiencing that horrible future and feel that the desire to change is stronger than any desire to continue. And when you reach that place where this isn't just worth it anymore, and you do anything to change, let me know by nodding your head. So imagine everything happens in reverse. Everything up to that point happens backwards until you find yourself walking through that door in reverse. But there is a new door. But I want you to see a slightly different version of you standing in front of that door. Looking lean, athletic, healthy. This version of you is still you. It's just a version of you that prioritizes your health and well-being. What if that version of you is addicted to healthy, nutritious food, physical activity, the dopamine you get from winning or accomplishing, or new personal bests, rather than the dopamine you get from a substance? And when you're ready, step into that identity. In the same way that you move from one version of you to someone else, this is no different. Imagine being that version of you that lives for living. Some of those feelings you experienced in the path of energy, vitality. What if that was because you value energy, vitality, focus? And what if you can get that in a new way? What if stimulation comes from experiences, not substances? And as you step into that identity, walk through the door and imagine what it would be like to just feel that you've changed. But you changing doesn't require that everyone around you changes. You can imagine being at a party. Other people are doing things, but it seems to have a new connotation now. You might feel empathy, sympathy, or just observe things that you used to enjoy as a bit gross, a bit disgusting. And I want you to frame that this isn't boring. This isn't missing out on fun. This is living life to a new level of discernment, of being distinguished, at connecting with this evolved version of you. And I want you to feel what it would feel like to feel that You can exercise more, eat better. And in social situations, I want you to feel that discernment is more important than willpower. That there's certain things you just don't want to do anymore because it's not you. And I want you to imagine being in places where you're being offered certain things and just feel how proud you feel when you can say, "No thanks, that's not me," and feel like it's 100% true. To connect to a new, evolved identity. And maybe you leave early from certain places, not with a sense of missing out, but a sense of being proud of yourself. Proud that you're avoiding recklessness and risk. This isn't a sacrifice. This feels like duty, honor, discernment. This feels like evolution. And I want you to imagine following that timeline. Having the option without the obligation to occasionally do certain things you used to do, but only when that risk-reward ratio seems like it makes sense. I want you to get a feeling that when you cross the road, you look to see if any cars are coming. That if you cross the road with your eyes closed, sooner or later, you're going to get hit by a car. And if you are discerning when you cross the road, you could be discerning with other things too. So just feel how it would feel. Not to play that game of whack-a-mole, but to only do things if it really makes sense, to be free of a time loop, to be free of a prison, to be free of the grossness. And if this identity feels more appealing than anything else, let me know by nodding your head. And now it's time. It's time to leave this future knowing that you now have a choice to be the identity that you've been carrying on, full of those lucky escapes and near misses, or a new identity where you mitigate those risks, but have a new quality of life that comes from something else. Good food, good exercise, activities and accomplishments. Knowing that you can be proud of this version of you. So just imagine standing in front of those two doors with a new ethos. You've already accepted this new identity. You would then have to choose the old one to go back to it. And all that risk and all of that grossness and all of that sniffling noses and all of that dependency. And if you get a sense that you just don't want that anymore because it isn't you, let me know by nodding your head. And now you can float back to that garden, the olive tree, the pool, the blue skies. But you float back at this new identity, discernment and higher standards. And that can be boosted by willpower, but you don't need willpower for something that just isn't you anymore. It's time to return from that place to your current place, again taking all of this new identity with you. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Just wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes. Connect and calibrate into the here and the now. As I now count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. Starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of The Hypnotist. If you've enjoyed this episode or got some value from it, please give it a 5-star rating and review. And maybe you know someone that would also benefit from this particular episode, in which case share the episode with them so they can also get the benefit too. And if you would like to listen to this episode where it's just the hypnosis, so no intro, no outro, no explanation, just the hypnosis and completely ad-free, there will be a link in the description where you can subscribe at a very low cost and only get access to the hypnosis. So if that's of interest, please check that out. Thank you again for being a regular listener of The Hypnotist, and I'll see you again soon for more.